Preview season rolls on here on the channel, and today it's all about the Washington Huskies, a team that was just in the national championship 2 years ago. They fell off a little bit, went 6-7 in year one under Jed Fish, but some improvement to be made. We'll talk about all that and more here on today's episode of Armchair Analysis. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day so far. It is Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025. Hope y'all are having, again, a great day, a great start to your week. Hope you guys enjoyed the last couple of videos. We talked about the backyard brawl, Pitt and West Virginia in back-to-back days. Not often you get a rivalry of that magnitude. You get to talk about both their teams back-to-back, but always fun and always enjoy the banter with those. But let's talk about this Washington Huskies team. All right, and let's start with 2024 because it was an interesting season, to say the very least. They went 6-7, 4-5 in Big Ten play. Had some interesting wins. They did get that revenge W against Michigan, obviously losing the national championship back in January of last year. They got the win in the regular season this year. It obviously didn't mean as much, but it was still important, I think, to them to go and get that win out there in Seattle. This is a team that averaged 23.4 points per game last year, which was 104th in college football. They gave up 23.8, which was 54th in college football. And their turnover margin per game was plus 0.2. That was 51st. They had a top 23 recruiting class. They brought in a top 40, they brought in a number 23 recruiting class, a top 40 portal class at number 40 with 19 commitments. And they really addressed some of the things that they just needed going forward, to say the least. On top of that, they also bring in Ryan Walters to be the defensive coordinator, the former head coach at Purdue. But before he was a head coach at Purdue, and before that was not good, he was a really good defensive coordinator, amazing even out at Illinois. If he can take over and do what he needs to do, and he has some players that I think are going to help him with that, this defense is going to take a step forward, which was already good. The Steve Belichick system works, which is bend, don't break, force an issue in plus territory, and allow field goals rather than touchdowns. And they did a pretty solid job of that last year. But this year, Ryan Walters is going to they're going to give up the big play because of the aggressive nature of the Walters defense. It's going to look a lot different, and we'll talk more about it here as we go. Taking a look at this coaching staff, of course, Jed Fish comes in year two, again, 6-7, but I think that he's on the right path. He has done what he needs to do to build this program, at least on paper, to look good. And when you look at something on paper, how much does it really mean? We'll kind of get into that. Jimmy Dougherty steps up to be the full-time offensive coordinator in 2025. Last year was a passing game coordinator and a quarterbacks coach, which is a big deal because he's worked with Damon Williams for a while now. They're going to have a pretty fun, I think, connection this year in how they call plays. Speaking of 3 returning starters this year for that Washington offense, and I think the biggest one's Denzel Boston coming back and going to be paired up again with Damon Williams in the passing game. But we can also talk about Jonah Coleman as well, the star running back from last year, who I think is going to step up and continue to make bigger and bigger plays and be more and more important to this team. They also got Adam Muhammad in the backfield, who's returning from last year. They did well in the portal offensively, but they didn't really chase much. They went after Omari Evans, a wide receiver out of Penn State, and then they got Carver Willis from Kansas State and Jerion Hatchett from Oklahoma to be a part of the offensive line. They pick up Chris Lawson, who's I think is going to be a very quiet star to this offense as a true freshman. Going to get a lot of playing time, and we'll see what happens. So let's go through this offense a little more organized. Damon Williams at quarterback, no questions asked, and I think he's going to really take a step forward this year. Jonah Coleman and Adam Muhammad, the pair in the backfield. Denzel Boston returns as last year's leading receiver, and he's going to be probably All-American caliber again this year. Only issue is he's playing at the same time as some other stars like Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams and and plenty of others. Don't think I'm snubbing your guys. Amari Evans, again, coming over from Penn State. Kevin Green Jr. returns. And then, again, Chris Lawson's a freshman that I'm really expecting to have a pretty good year. At tight end, they got Quentin Moore. And then the offensive line returns 3 of 5 players. Again, Carver Willis and Jerrion Hatchett come in to fill the needs on the line of scrimmage. This offensive line last year did not grade very well. Their pass block grade was a 45, which was 67 out of 68 Power 5 teams, or Power 4 teams, only ahead of Maryland. The run blocking grade was no better, 56.6, which was 57th out of 68. The biggest thing is that the players that they have returning the offensive line returned 26 games played at a minimum, and that doesn't include the transfers. It's going to pick up in the experience category, and they're going to. I think they're going to improve. I don't want to say tremendously, but I think they're going to be much better this year than what last year was. Which anything would really be better than the offensive line play from last year. Moving over to the defense, and they only have one returning starter, and that's Ephesians Prysock, at cornerback. Going to be a big deal, and he's going to be paired up with Tacario Davis coming over from Arizona at the corner position. This team returns 5 of 11 players from the 2024 roster. They really hit the portal in the defensive category, because not only did they get Tacario Davis, they grabbed Tariq Al-Lukta from Washington State, Tai Uiagalelei coming over from Arizona, and they picked up 2 or 3 others that I think are going to be a big deal, but those 3 I think are going to make a big deal. I think Uiagalelei is going to be a big deal at the line of scrimmage, really help out this defensive line, creating that havoc in the backfield. Tacario Davis, again, to pair up with Ephesians Prysock is going to be really fun to watch, and then Al-Lukta is going to be fun to figure out too. Returning leaders from last year, Prysock is the leading tackler returning from last year with 45. Tackles for loss is Isaiah Ward with 6. Sacks is Isaiah Ward and Russell Davis with 3 apiece. This team does not return a single interception of the 8 they had last season. And this team returns multiple players with 1 forced fumble. And to go along with that interception, you would think Tacario Davis had more, or had an interception or 2. He did not. He had 0 interceptions in 2024. And really, when I was looking, he only has 1 in his career. So I'm going to be intrigued to watch how that plays out and what he's able to do for this Washington defense. Again, I think the aggression is going to be up. Ryan Walters loves to get after quarterbacks, loves to create havoc in the passing game, and I don't see that changing here in this season. So, looking at my thoughts for this team, as I always do, write a little paragraph about everybody, and it kind of helps me get my mind right on how I want to predict this schedule. This is a team looking for improvement in year 2 under Jed Fish. If Damon Williams is what many believe, including myself, this team will be very good. Ryan Walters looks to turn up the aggression for a defense that needs the production. And when I say that again, they just don't return the turnover production that they should. I think they'll be fine in all the other categories. There's going to be somebody that steps up in the category of tackles and tackles for loss and even sacks. That's going to happen with this defense. It's just bound to. But truly, the production that needs to be built is interceptions, forced fumbles, creating havoc, and just being a menace to society, really, defensively, with no better term to use. So let us go ahead and take a look at the schedule here in 2025. This team, as you look at it, sits at an over-under of 7.5. Their odds to win the Big Ten are plus 6,000, which are pretty solid odds. It's top half, if I'm not mistaken. National Championship odds plus 20,000. So there is something here with this Washington team that Vegas at least likes a little bit. We'll kind of get to that here in a minute. And part of it's just the schedule. It's not overly damning. Now, they do play Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon. You could throw Illinois in there if you really want to. But there's at least 3 teams that are going to be tough. And the good part of this, 2 of those are at home. I personally would not be surprised to see an upset in one of those games. I don't know which one it's going to be. I'm not going to sit here and try to predict it right now, but I would not be surprised to see an upset in one of those games. Let's go ahead and predict the schedule here. And I'm going to go ahead and throw wins up for the first two games. Colorado State and UC Davis, I think, are going to be fine opponents. But it's not really going to matter. I think Washington is much better and much more improved than last year, where these games really will not be close. Not that they were going to be either way, but they won't be close. Washington State in Pullman after a bye week is interesting, but not interesting enough to me. I think this is going to be, no matter how much of a rivalry this is, Washington State is trying to put together a whole new team, really. I mean, they lost everything that was good from last year. Jake Dickert leaves, John Mateer leaves, Ben Arbuckle leaves. You know, you look at the defensive side, David Gusta leaves. They lost a lot on this team. It's going to be really tough for them to compete with Washington or really any Power 5 opponent here in 2025. I'm giving Washington the win. They'll face Ohio State on September 27th. And this game right here is interesting to me. The biggest thing, this is an upset spot. Ohio State is going to be trying to figure out their quarterback situation. And, you know, what I've read and seen so far is that there's good days for some, and then there's really bad days for them. Julian Sand and Lincoln Keenholz are the guys that are expected to compete for that starting spot, are expected to be the guy. But neither one of them are really pulling away or really pulled away through spring. It was all, again, you know, Sand would have a really good day, and Keenholz will have a bad day, and then Keenholz would have a really good day, and Sand would have a bad day. It's going to be interesting to watch, because I think that we walk into this year for Ohio State really knowing this time around the weak link is quarterback. You know, last year, this was a team that didn't have a weak link. This was a team that was projected by me to make a national championship appearance. And the only difference was I had them losing in it rather than winning. This is a team that is going to be good. I have zero doubts about that in my mind. How are they able to push forward? How are they able to address these concerns? And on top of that, it's year one for Brian Hartline as an offensive coordinator. How does he progress? And how does his play calling style, how does his overall energy work for this offense? We know what he is as a wide receivers coach. We know what he is as a recruiter. How is he as a play caller? That's a question. Then when you look at the defense, Matt Patricia taking over the defensive coordinator duties, what do they look like? I'll talk about all this some more. This is not an Ohio State preview, but it is something that you need to pay attention to. I say all that long-windedly to give Ohio State the win here. I think that they are just a better team, and I think that will ultimately play itself out. But this is going to be an interesting spot. I would not be surprised if Washington takes the upset here. I just wouldn't. They go on the road to Maryland. I'm going to give them a win. I just still not buying into what Maryland is. And then you get Rutgers on a Friday night. And this was a game that Washington lost last year to Rutgers in Piscataway on a Friday night, if I'm not mistaken. This game being on a Friday night in Seattle, I think it's going to go the complete opposite way. I'm going to take Washington. And they'll be 5-1 coming out of the first half of the season, which is a big deal. A great start to what could be a great year. Then they get Michigan in the big house. And I think that this is going to be one of those games that they just don't win. And the biggest reason for that is last year's game obviously was souring for Michigan and players and fans alike. It's going to be a loud environment. It's going to be crazy. And it's kind of a hostile game because when you think of everything behind the Michigan program right now, all of the allegations, all the accusations to this Michigan program, and I'm not here to comment on whether they are true or false. That's not the argument here. Knowing what the Washington fan base has said, knowing what the Washington players have said at times, it adds some fuel to the fire for this game. I think it's going to be an emotional game once again, as it was last year, where I think Michigan's going to get the upper hand in this one and take it back. So at this point, we sit at 4-2, 5-2. Sorry. Coming back home and facing Illinois, I think when you lose a game like that to Michigan, it either boosts your confidence or it kills it. And you're playing an Illinois team that is good. And I think Illinois is going to be fun to watch. I think they're going to be a good team. That's for certain. I just said that. What I don't buy into currently is the hype and the notion that they are a playoff team or they are last year's Indiana. I'm just not there yet. I have to see their schedule. I have to look at all that stuff down the line, but I'm not buying that. What I am buying is they're good and they're going to be a challenge for anybody. But I am taking Washington to get the win here. I think they'll just have the upper hand. At this point, DeMond Williams, Jonah Coleman, this entire offense is going to be kind of firing on all cylinders. They're going to know what they are, what they want to be. They're going to be just fine. Illinois, on the other hand, is going to be just fine from the very beginning. But the issue for them is going to be running back depth, and I think that's where their biggest question marks lie. While they're not worried about their running backs, they are going to be concerned a little bit, again, as the season goes on and as these guys kind of break down over the season. You get that before a bye week where you go on the road to Wisconsin 2 weeks later. And typically I'd be like, okay, this is a tough environment. This is kind of a letdown spot. Maybe it is, but I'm just not seeing it. I don't really have this belief that Wisconsin is the team that's going to pull an upset on somebody who's truly better than them. I'm taking Washington to get the win there. You get Purdue at home, that's going to be a win. I think that Barry Odom's got a lot to figure out, and they will at some point, but too much to figure out in 2025. On the road against UCLA, I don't think it's really going to matter. I think that just, again, the better team is going to prevail here. UCLA still got a huge hill to climb themselves. Then you get Oregon at home to close out the year, and at this point, what is Dante Moore? Are we as confident and as high still on Dante Moore as we are in the preseason? And that's, when I say we, that's college football media as a whole. And I'm not credentialed media, but still cover the sport. What will Dante Moore be? How will he progress again for this Oregon offense is a big deal. Part of what's going to help him is the fact that he's got a guy like Mekhi Hughes to maybe lean on a little bit as a running back. The Oregon defense will be just fine. This is going to be a fun game and another upset spot because Seattle is a tough place to play, and this Washington team is going to be really good at this point. I mean, they're going to come into this game at 9-2. What will they close it out as? Will they be a playoff team or will they be fringe outside looking in? I think the answer is going to be outside looking in. I think they're going to lose this game to Oregon close, but they are going to ultimately lose, ending the season at 9-3, 6-3 in Big Ten play. It will not give them a Big Ten championship opportunity, and it will not give them a college football playoff opportunity at the end of the day. It will be close. It will certainly be close. And again, I mean, I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens here for this team. One thing I'll leave you on is a quote from Athlon Sports Magazine from an opposing Big Ten assistant coach. Again, all anonymous. If the quarterback continues to develop, I think they're a most improved candidate this year. Their biggest problem is the offensive line. That situation isn't how a coaching change at heavy portal can break bad on you. That group was truly bad last year. The quarterback seems to be a rising star even without a ton of reps, and they have legit weapons at wide receiver. Keep an eye on them in high school recruiting. They're starting to notch some big wins and go head-to-head with Oregon. I think they're a little bit ahead of the build that Jed Fish had at Arizona because the floor was a little higher at Washington. Even with the portal losses after Kalen DeBoer, they're not a contender yet, but they're going to be across the board this year. Or they're going to be better across the board this year. And I agree with that. I don't think they are a contender, but I think that the games that they play where the talent levels are even, which are not many, but there are few, that the talent levels are even across the board. Illinois, you could argue Rutgers, and you could even say Ohio State and Oregon to an extent. Like the tougher games, the majority of them are at home, which gives you a little bit of an advantage at times, especially in such an environment as it is out there in Seattle. But you do get a road trip to Michigan. You know, you get a road trip to UCLA. that could maybe throw your season off if you're not prepared. Michigan you're not expected to win. You're not going to be a favorite. The Ohio State game and the Oregon game, you're not going to be a favorite. But in every other game, you're going to be within a possession on the line, which is going to be very helpful. And that's what, gives me that confidence at 9-3. 9-3 is a ceiling here, though. I don't really see more than 9 wins. I also don't see less than 7. I personally sit at the 8-4, 9-3 mark is probably perfect. The over-under, again, 7.5, I'm taking the over, and I'm buying in on that over. But I think it's going to be a fun year. I think single-digit wins still, but it's going to be close. They're going to be pushing hard. So if you're a Washington fan, let me know what you think. Let me know who I may have missed out on or not talked about enough here in this episode. If you're new around here in general, leave a like, subscribe, comment down below. Subscribing, we're trying to hit 100 subscribers by the time college football season kicks off, which is in August 23rd to be exact, week 0. Trying to hit 100 by then, and the trajectory we're on, we're going to go way above that. But I'm starting with 100, and then if we get there quickly, we'll push for 150 and just keep rolling from there. So I'm excited. Hope you guys are too. Hope you guys are enjoying the content so far. If you want to see the rest of the videos here in preview season, it's all on a playlist over on the channel. You can find everything from the Florida State preview on June 1st all the way until today, July 2nd, the Washington Huskies. I thank you all for tuning in. Tomorrow, we got the Missouri Tigers hitting the SEC once again. Excited to talk about this team and what they're expected to be, because truth be told, it's a lot of unknown on offense and quite a bit of proven commodity defensively. So we'll get through all that and predict them tomorrow. Hope you guys will stick around. Either way, y'all have a good rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow with the Missouri Tigers.